Good evening, I'm Dan Burwood. Thanks for joining us. 1 year has now passed since an unstoppable fire ripped through the village of Lytton. It left a scarred and uninhabitable landscape. It's also left frustration for those waiting and wanting to rebuild. The CBC's Brady Strachan is there for us in Lytton. Brady, how much has changed?
Well, Dan, I'm here right downtown where the fire was that tore through the downtown of Lytton. As you can see behind me, some of the buildings here are just the burnt out shells of the buildings that once stood here. And that hasn't changed at all since the day after the fire. There's twisted metal. You can see this chimney pointing up into the air from this structure here. So on a lot of these sites, not a lot has changed. There has been some remediation work to take away some of the scrap metal, but as you say, it's really, there's been no construction since the fire. Now that fire ripped through town 1 year ago, destroying hundreds of homes in the area. 2 people died in the blaze. It's been a very traumatic year for the residents of Lytton. Many of them are still displaced, living in motels in other communities far away. Today, residents are holding an event to commemorate or to recognize the 1 year anniversary. I spoke with Edith Loring Kunaga. She's one of the event organizers. She says it's important for the community to come together today.
So even though the town has burned, we're all displaced all over the place. And so some of us haven't seen each other before the fire. So today, you know, is a chance for us to come together and it is a difficult day. You know, it's hard to believe that a year ago today our entire lives changed.
And part of that event is a time capsule where residents and children will be putting messages of gratitude into the capsule before they bury it.
Brady, as we said, a year later, very little has been rebuilt in Lytton. Why not?
Well, Dan, you can imagine a town of this size, a village actually, almost 90% of it burned down, including the town hall, all of the town records. And Lytton is built on an ancient First Nations village. So there's a very complex archaeological process that has to happen on every site before any development permits can be issued. So it's a frustration for residents who would like to see things happening sooner. They want to see a sign of progress. And a lot of their complaints land on the mayor, Jan Polderman.
It's a matter of patience. I think there's a lot of expectations that people have when they're not here to think that, you know, it's easy to just sort of get things done until you actually go to try and do them. And so I guess a lot of times you're the sounding board for their, complaints.
So there is some signs of progress. Both the federal and provincial governments have promised more than $10 million for the rebuild. And a company has just announced that they're going to start the rebuild of the first 2 homes. They will be fire smart homes, energy efficient. And I think once those structures, the construction begins on those structures, it will be a big relief for everybody in Lytton. Dan?
The CBC's Brady Strachan in Lytton. As Brady just mentioned, many in that community came together for a sweet but somber gathering today. Some seeing each other for the first time since the fire. A drumming and singing ceremony was followed by a giant roast pig luncheon. That time capsule filled with art, letters, and painted stones. The images depicting those who helped out over the past year.
The support has been amazing from July the 1st right up till today, of how many people have poured their true hearts out for everyone in Lytton.
It's expected rebuilding will begin in late September. We're bringing you first-hand accounts from people in Lytton about that fateful day 1 year ago when fire leveled their village. The CBC's Tom Popick spoke with a First Nations man who spotted the fire minutes after it started.
My name is Fabian Duncan, and I work down at the train bridge, the EOC. It was like 4:30, 4:25 when that coal train went by, and I saw fire coming from the creek, down the creek from where we are, the train tracks, along the train tracks. All on this outside there, that's how close it was. The one guy, the fire guy, said it was an arm length away. When I got into town up by the grocery store, the Chinese museum was already on fire.
What do you think started the fire?
The train. They said the fire jumped the Thompson River. That's when I ran for my 2 kids. So I always say when I ask people who interview us, do you ever have to run from fire? Leave everything behind. Run. Fucking town's gone, even though it was small. Some people, it was our town, man. It's where we lived. It's my home. I'm in the Cluckbucks. That means people of the river. I am from this area. I am what these mountains and this river make us. It was hard to see it.
What was the hardest part?
Just the realization of this is where ground zero was.
Lytton resident and Kanaka Bar Chief Patrick Mitchell tells us about rebuilding the community to be more resilient and more fireproof.
I lost my home on June 30th. I know what response mode feels like.
Hi, my name is Chief Patrick Mitchell of the Kanaka Bar Indian Band.
This is a resiliency center. This is where you get to in a crisis. They can use it for computers. This is a food bank that we've set up here. So people who, food, it's not a donation center, it's a food bank. We want people who are traveling, who are residents, who are visitors to our region to know that there's a safe place for them. Ask my wife, ask my mother-in-law, ask my children, ask my grandchildren. You don't want what we're experiencing right now. Our community weathered the storm. We were able to shelter in place and then are able to bounce back very quickly. That's resiliency. So if you don't invest in your tomorrow today, you're going to be dealing with response mode, flight, fight, panic, fear. We're building an entire subdivision to be ready by October of 2022. And what we wanted Lytton to have is an alternative or an option to traditional builds. If you're going to put a mobile home in, you're going to be at risk of a fire. If you're going to put in a modular, you're going to be at risk of a fire. But these buildings that we're building here, the demonstration homes, the options that we're bringing in are affordable. And we'll prove that hopefully by the time Lytton starts its rebuild. So why wouldn't you stay in a place knowing that you're going to be protected from climate change's extreme weather events?
The CBC's Tom Popick joins us again with one woman's efforts to ensure Lytton's Chinese History Museum is not forgotten. This after the fire destroyed the building and most of the 1,600 artifacts it housed.
Teapot that made it through in one piece. I'm Lorna Fandridge, and I was the owner and the curator of the Lytton Chinese History Museum. In here is a tiny little pot that would have held medicine. If I clean them up, some of them will be able to be right in the museum. Some of them will just tell the fire story. That's the intent at this point with most of this stuff.
How much do you think you lost altogether?
I know I lost 1,600 pieces. The Chinese history was basically forgotten here. Before the museum was put up, if you asked anybody about the Chinese here, they would say, oh yeah, they worked on the railway and there were some miners here, but there was never a third sentence even. Like, even in Lytton, people didn't know that Chinese joss house or temple was here. I am planning to rebuild, and I decided that almost right away. My husband Bernie and I choose to live here. We want it to be a community again. And so I wanted to put our building back up just so, you know, we're not one of the ones that gave up on Lytton and left. So it was important to me to make sure that we rebuilt. And then this. So we would have saved these because we didn't know if we'd find any pieces that are better. I don't want to see us becoming a subdivision. I'd like to see us rebuilding with the individuality we had before, including more of the history, perhaps having more displays of what was. But yeah, it's hugely important for everybody in town, not only the Indigenous community, but the settler community, and also, I guess in my small way, the Chinese community.
Denise O'Connor is among those who lost everything that day. She's told the CBC's Tom Popick Ottawa's plans are hampering local efforts to rebuild.
My name is Denise O'Connor. I have lived in Lytton pretty much all my life. How do you like my view? Come on this way. That's the roof. You can see the old bicycle frame that we had in the garage there. That's what remains of my cherry tree. It looks like a Halloween tree, doesn't it? We know that everybody handles trauma in their own way. Personally, I'm not struggling with it. I don't believe, I'm sure I am, but I don't see myself as struggling with the trauma piece. I have good memories, right? And I think of things I owned and I had, but I always revert back to, why is this not cleaned up yet? Why is this taking so long? We're a political pawn, building the model community that Minister Sajan said that the people have been asking for. We haven't been asking for a community that's net zero or a model community for the world to look to. The people that I've talked to, the residents around here, are saying we just want to build our town back. We don't want to have those conditions put on it. I want a home back again, right? I look at the 1-year anniversary as just being another day, and I just want to get on with it. I just want to get on with the cleanup. We just want to get on with our lives.
In the days leading up to the fire, the community experienced soaring temperatures, eventually hitting a record 49.6 degrees Celsius. Residents there spoke with Tom Popek about what they've learned in the days and months since so much of what they love went up in flames.
My message to everyone out there right now, based on this last year, is don't take for granted anything you have, because life can turn in a moment.
It's hard to put into words for you. That's basically it. It's hard to put into any kind of words.
Our life in Lytton is quite changed. We're still hoping for a word when we can rebuild.
We want Canadians to be aware of their risk, their probability and consequence.
Appreciate all those around you, everything you own, because you just never know what's around the corner.
You just have to be in it to understand it. A lot of my peoples, a lot of my town peoples, they lost everything they worked hard for.
For many people, life isn't that easy. They're unsure about what their future would be. And for the town of Lytton, we need to get the people back.
But most importantly, everything you say or do today determines your tomorrow. So just do something.
And finally, many in that community came together for a sweet and somber gathering today, some seeing each other together for the first time. Our cameras were rolling the entire time. Have a look.
And then I have my younger son as well.
Sure.
Can I get one for him?
Children are always curious. 30 years down the road, they're going to be able to open it up and remember. Say, I remember this rock. I remember this. I remember doing this. You know, it's really an honor to be here.
So I'm not an artist. However, this is my rendition of Planet Earth. And I drew this because in 30 years from now, when this is brought up, I'll be 86 years old. And I want to reflect on my child's future and how do we create this place to be a safe place for her to live and to thrive.
Put a little joke in there saying that if Tyson, because it'll be 30 years, right? So I put a necklace in there and a ring for his future girlfriends if he has one. So
I don't have one.
Oh my goodness, you might.
Below here, this is your rock, is it?
Yeah.
There you go,
Emery, 30 years time, Emery, you'll be the one to open it up, okay?
think that's the AG, the house or the AG store that burned down.
Thank you for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on our app, CBC Gem, and online at cbc.ca/BC.